All right, g'day everyone. Welcome back to another video. I said I was going to do every week, but I didn't realize how much time it would take up. So I'm back, and maybe let's go every 2 weeks. Hey, let's see how that goes. Today's educational triathlon video is brought to you by my shirt, which is Game of Thrones. Okay, so leave me a comment. What house are you going for? Personally, I'm a Targaryen house. All right, dragons. How can you go past it? What do we got here? Middle is House Stark. Almost forgetting it was so long ago, and House Lannister. So leave me a comment. Let me know what house you're up. So we'll get into it today. What we're going to look at today is some general planning guidelines for how you might plan your own training program, weekly, monthly, the sessions you might do, how often you might do the sessions, some general guidelines on like when to put long runs in your program, how many rest days should you have a week, how many times should you swim, how many times should you ride, where you allocate your time, and all those sorts of things. So we'll get into it. I'll share some screen with you. All right, so if you read a lot of training books, there's one really good one which I read ages ago, a marathon training book, which was The Law of Running from Noakes. So if I do have it somewhere, I'll look for it. Whoa. So that's the book. I think I read it back to back, or cover to cover. It's a thick sucker, but in that book there's a lot of good information, and particularly there's a section on Newton's 9 rules of running, 9 rules to running, or 9 rules to training. And a lot of these apply to triathlon as well, but I've also just want to elaborate on it a bit and just add my sort of 2 cents in there as well. So if we go to the screen here, the 9 rules of training. So the first one, train frequently and train year round. I saw a good quote the other day, and it went along the lines of, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Okay, and that's a big thing for age groupers, because age groupers seem to really fluctuate between just getting ready from event to event. So they might do let's say they're doing an Ironman, they might do a massive 20-week program, for example. They do their race and then they fall away and they kind of dial right back on the training. And then when it comes time to start back up for another race, they have to kind of come back from almost square one, okay? But the smart way to train is to train frequently year round and just adjust the volume of your training during different times of the year to accommodate for whether you're going on a holiday, or if you've got a busy time at work, or if you're really got a standard routine and you can get right into it. So even if you don't have a race planned, or you haven't entered a race, which is a big case for a lot of people nowadays, then just do some easy training and try and be consistent amongst the 3 sports. Whether you do 1 session a week, 2 sessions a week in each sport, just try and make sure you're still doing something year round, so that when it comes time to get a bit more serious, you're good to go. Next one, start gradually and train gently. This is a huge one, I reckon. Everyone seems to be in a real rush to get fit, or to they set, if it's running, they might set for the next 5K event they want to hit 4-minute pace, for example. But at the moment, the best effort they can do is 4:15. So all of a sudden they start their training program, or they go, right, from Monday I'm on this 5K program and I'm going to hit 4-minute Ks. And what they try and do is, from the very start, they start trying to run at 4-minute Ks as much as possible. That doesn't really fit into the gradually, gently sort of rule there. instead you've got to be a bit smarter about how you progress towards these goals. You can't just expect to, because you decide in your brain that you're gonna, that you're gonna train and this is going to be your goal, that it's going to happen straight away. It's a gradual process, and if you try and force it, most often what happens is you get injured, or you train too hard and you can't back up for the next session. And then what ends up happening is you lose that frequency of training we talk about from rule 1. Next one, train first for distance and later for speed. This is a pretty good one. Like if you're training for a marathon or you're training for a half Ironman, and at the moment, like swimming 2Ks or 1.9Ks is a big deal for you, then there's no point going out and doing sprint sets, 50-meter reps, if you can't, first of all, get through 2Ks, continuous swimming comfortably and not make it feel like a big deal to you. So you got to get that volume in initially, build that endurance, and then from that you can layer in the speed. You might have heard there's a lot of publications out there at the moment talking about reverse periodization, which basically means putting the speed in the first part of the program, and then from there building your endurance and aerobic speed. Now that's a pretty advanced form of training or way to program your training. So for beginners or for people who aren't adhering to that rule 1 and haven't been maintaining that frequency year round, then it's really I wouldn't advise it, because you're probably going to end up injured pretty early in your program or pretty burnt out before you get into your volume. Number 4, don't set a daily schedule. So you just got to, I missed a T there. Learn how to spell, Dan. So don't set a daily schedule. So here, it's good to have a plan on what you're going to do throughout the week, but temper that with also your how you're feeling that day, and balancing it up with all the other life stresses you have. So, if you've had a mad day at work and you've had to do massive overtime, and you've got an hour and a half or a 2-hour bike set or an hour bike set planned that night, and it's, VO2 intervals, then it's a good chance you're probably not going to, even if you get to that, doing that session, there's a good chance you're just not going to be mentally fresh enough to perform at that session, and it can end up being a waste of time. So situations like that, it might be best off just having the night off, resetting for the next day, or doing like a super easy, shorter aerobic ride or easy ride. So you just have to, whilst it's good to have a schedule, it's good to tick the boxes. You just have to balance it out with how you're feeling and find that middle ground sometimes. Number 5, don't race when you are in training and run time trials only infrequently. So I've got a little spin on this, but firstly, just to explain what they mean by don't race when you are in training and run time trials only infrequently. With the first part, racing while you're in training, like if you've got a well planned out training program and you plonk a race in the middle, the intensity of that race and also the lead up, freshening up or taper times can actually impact the overall intended goal of that training program or that part of your program. So sometimes it can be a bit of a problem to race like that. And the other part here, running time trials only infrequently. So similar thing, a time trial is a maximum effort. So that maximum effort, in the middle of a training program can actually, like on the other side of it, can actually cause a lot of fatigue and cause you to maybe need to rest a little bit more than what you might actually do if you had a few more harder sessions planned after that. So you might actually get more benefit from not doing time trials and sticking to your program and letting it build, so you can make the most use of your time to get as fit as you can for race day. Now, my little spin on this, I do like some time trials in a program, but usually at the beginning and then maybe at another key time later on down the track in the program, just to assess your progress. So, like from time trials, you can generally start to set zones, like training zones. and sort of assess where your fitness level is at the current point in time. So there is a space for time trials and for racing, but you just got to kind of understand what your training program is about and not let these things like racing too often or doing time trials affect what the goal of your training program is. Number 6, specialize. So this just falls into that category of specificity. Like if you want to get better at swimming, then you need to swim more. That's as simple as it goes. If you want to get stronger at swimming, then you need to swim more. Getting in the gym, is obviously got huge advantages, but and is obviously important to help with injury prevention, and it can help with performance. But you don't want to substitute it or let it impact too much on your ability to keep with your swimming training. Still very important, but yeah, if you want to get better at swimming, you want to go faster at swimming, you have to swim. Okay, there's no easy way around it. Don't overtrain. That's pretty straightforward. If you overcook yourself too much, you're going to have too much time off, which means you lose fitness. Okay, you start detraining the body. Number 8, start training the mind. Start getting strong mentally. Like if you have with open water swimming, there's a lot of people out there who are nervous about it. So if you're super nervous with open water swimming, and that's going to affect your mental approach to a race, make you real timid, make you maybe start off real cautiously. You could be the best pool swimmer in the world, but if you're terrified of the open water, then you're just not going to be able to translate that fitness from the pool into the open water. So get the mind right so that on race day, you can get the most out of your body. And last but not least, number 9, rest before race day. For us coaches and athletes who have been training for a long time, this is really a no-brainer. If it's an important race, you need to taper, you need to freshen up so that your body is completely like at neutral as far as fatigue levels go, but it's not sort of negative fatigue like detraining. And then the other side of it, you don't want to be overtrained come race day because it'll be the same effect as if you're detrained. So you want to be at that right level, nice and even, nice and fresh, muscles are topped up with energy, the mind's fresh, it's not overstressed, and you're ready to like really hit it on race day. And like a good saying that I had a coach say to me once was, he said that when you're recovered when you wanted to train 2 days ago. Okay, so when you're recovered when you wanted to train 2 days ago. And like, that's a real eye opener for how fresh you need to be to have a good session or have a good race. All right, so I just want to blast through those quickly. We've got a lot more to get through. Okay, training for the swim. All right, I'm just going to skip this bit first, and I'm just going to go through how you might allocate your training through the week. So let's go through these ones quickly. So how you might structure your week as far as how much, is largely dependent on how much time you have available and the areas you might want to improve on. But let's just take a standard person who's doing a standard triathlon and how we might, as a general rule, approach the allocation of swim, bike, run to their training. So here I have just a little pie chart, make it look easy. So here I've got bike training, allocate about 50% of your training time to that. Run training, about 35%. And lastly, swim training, about 15%. Okay, most triathlons are very heavy on the bike leg. So, and most triathlons are a lot of how your end result is determined is by how well you can perform on the run leg. And you can't run well if you aren't strong on the bike or you aren't fit on the bike. Because if the bike leg takes too much effort out of you, then it doesn't matter how good a runner you are, you won't run well. And I've experienced this many a time. So take my word on it. You want to be strong on the bike, strong enough so that when you get to the run, the bike has only taken out of you like maybe 10%, 15% of your ability to run to your fresh running potential. And the swim is there. Normally for most people, it's a means of getting to the bike. But at the same time, like, you could spend an extra 5 hours a week swimming on top of what you already do, but you might only make a very marginal time advantage. So you're much better off spending that extra 5 hours on the bike, okay, or on the run, okay. That's just, as far as an age group situation goes, that's what is a good breakup of your training. Elites are a lot different, but I won't go into that. So when you're working out your week, you just say to yourself, how many hours do I have available to train? And then break up your swim, bike, run according to these percentages. So for example, here we have swim. You know, you can either go for 2 sessions a week, 3 sessions a week, or 4 sessions a week, and make those sessions anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half. Next up, bike, you can either do 3, 4, or 5 sessions a week, anywhere between 45 minutes and 4 hours per session. That's 50% of your week. And then run 3, 4, or 5 sessions a week, 20 minutes to 2 hours per session. Okay. So like if you had a 4-hour ride in your week, like let's say you had 10 hours of training time per week, and if you allocated a 4-hour ride on the weekend with your mates, then all of a sudden, you know, that's 40% used up of your bike. Okay. So now you got 10% left of time. So 10% of 10 hours is 1 hour. So you can allocate another maybe 1 hour wind trainer at home during the week. So you got 2 bikes that week, okay, because you've used up all your training time in that 4-hour long ride. So, you know, it's just a simple math equation, work it all out and work out what kind of sessions you can fit in that week. Moving along, you know, your schedule is always going to be independent. Everyone's got their individual schedule of how many hours they can train and that sort of thing. Sometimes, you know, you have the ideal layout or what you picture an ideal program might look like, but, you know, things happen and you can't fit into that mold. So you just have to be flexible. Generally, I say run off the bike as much as possible, okay? It's so important. Running off the bike once a week is okay. And I think is kind of like a minimum requirement you want to do. But if you can, you know, if you have 3 bikes that week, run off the bike 3 times. Doesn't have to be long, you know, 10, 20 minutes, up to an hour maximum of time is plenty. Okay, don't long run or hard run after strength training. Right, this is a big one. I've seen so many people injure themselves and have like serious injuries a day after they do a hard strength session in the gym. Because a strength session in the gym, if it's hard enough, will generally take you at least 2 days, 2 to 3 days to recover from. So you need to keep those 2 to 3 days afterwards fairly light on the training, especially the running. You can probably swim a bit harder and bike a bit harder, but definitely be careful with your running. Okay, with your hard runs, 1 to 2 of these a week maximum, and definitely space them out by at least 1 to 2 days. So a hard run session might be anything with intervals, track running, that sort of nature. With your swimming, swimming can take a lot less out of the body as far as like the impact on the joints and that sort of thing. So in most of your swim sessions, it's a good idea to include a lot of intensity there. Like say you had you had 100% of intensity in your body to dish out on a weekly basis, you might allocate 50% of that or more to your swim sessions. So if you're doing 2 swim sessions a week, you might do 2 hard swim sessions a week. And then you can allocate, let's say 30 to 40% of that intensity you have per week to your bike. And then maybe, you know, 10 to 20% into a run session. Okay, just got to be real careful with your run intensity because it can lead to injuries quite easily. Bike sessions, as a general rule, like with threshold or under intensity sessions, try and have a 24-hour period of easy training before you do another hard session. Okay, now if you're going over threshold in a bike session, so like VO2 sets or sprint sets, then you probably want to leave about 48 hours of, or have 48 hours of easy training before you try and go and do another hard bike set, for instance. And a big rule overall is to remember that fatigue is general and not local. So what I mean by that, like let's say you do a super hard run session, it doesn't mean that the only thing that's fatigued in your body is just your running. That fatigue applies to all areas of your life. So swimming, biking, working, family, all that sort of stuff. So don't think, oh, I did a hard swim session, I did a hard run session Monday, I can do a hard bike session Tuesday. That's not necessarily the case, because that fatigue carries across all areas of your body and your lifestyle. So just remember that. There's only so much intensity you can dish out on yourself per week. You can't do it in every session. You might do it for a while, but guarantee you'll burn out quite quickly. All right, so covered off on that time allocation per week. Let's quickly look at each of the swim, bike and run a bit closely. So training for the swim, generally speaking, I try and swim in a 50-meter pool where possible over a 25-meter pool. In a 25-meter pool, if your tumble turns are adequate, then you're generally going to swim about 10 seconds per 100 faster in a 25-meter pool than a 50-meter pool. So just be mindful if you're setting yourself time cycles or time goals, or you're doing time trials, that sort of stuff. Be mindful if you're doing them 25 over 50 or vice versa, that your times are likely to be different. Open water swimming, so OWS is open water swimming. Look, it comes back to that rule of specificity. If you're uncomfortable open water swimming, then you need to do more of it. That's the only way around it. Whether you tee up with a local club or a surf life saving club and, get in the water under some supervised sessions, or do them in, start off maybe more gradually, do them in a nice calm lake before maybe moving into the beach, where there's lots of waves and that sort of thing. I'm just lucky I grew up on the beach on the Gold Coast, so swimming in the open water in the ocean for me with waves and that is actually fun. I find that fun. But, if you're growing up in the country where there is no waves, then that could be a different story. And here, unless you're a very, very average swimmer, like you can't even swim 100 meters straight, or you can't even swim 500 meters straight, then I wouldn't worry about allocating too much of your training time to that. But, like we said before, train for distance first. So, if you can't cover those distances, then make sure you are doing more swim training so you can get up to that, at least that benchmark. And a good idea is one swim squad once per week, minimum if possible. It's good just to put yourself in an environment where someone else is telling you what to do, someone else is pushing you. It does make you swim faster. It does give you that more intensity in your swim session. So I think that's a good idea. Okay, so if you're sort of structuring your own swim sets, or you want some swim sets to look at doing, this is what I like to include in every swim set, or include across a week of swim sets. So you might base a swim session on continuous swimming. So you might just swim 1,000 meters straight, 2,000 meters straight. All right, because when you're in the open water, that's what you're doing. You're swimming continuously. So you've got to get used to having your head down in the water. The arms are ticking over. You're trying to settle into a nice, comfortable rhythm. So you're just practicing. It's very open water specific. Threshold sessions. So these are the ones that really get you faster over the longer duration. So you've got to work out what your threshold is, what speed you can hold for a long period of time, the highest speed you can hold for a long period of time. A lot of the times we'll do sets of hundreds on a threshold. And I liken threshold sessions, or how I identify them, is they're sessions where there's no more, you might only have 5 maximum, absolute maximum 10 seconds rest, and you're doing each one hard. A good standard one I like to do is 10 by 100 hard, with trying to make sure you give yourself a time cycle where you only have maximum 10 seconds rest. And you're really pushing to touch the wall and give yourself that 10 seconds rest. Next one, muscular endurance or strength sets. So, longer sets, 200 to 1,000 meters at a time, with pool buoy, paddles, snorkel and band. Okay, that's what I call full equipment. So if you have all that gear, you just chuck it all on, and you're just working on pulling all the way through your stroke, building up your strength, not so much worried about speed. And then last one is speed sessions. So these would be like sets of 25s, 50s, 100s, probably too far for a speed set. And these you can, put in your session. You can even mix these into like a threshold session or a continuous session if you wanted to. And then frequency, like generally speaking, for all these, for swim, bike and run, you want to do at least 3 sessions a week for improvement to actually make progress. 2 sessions a week for maintenance. So that's just going to keep you comfortable at the current fitness level you're at. Technique drills, you might allocate a whole set to focusing on a whole bunch of different technique drills just to slow down the effort and focus more on your stroke technique, which is really critical. And then, a session per week or 2 or all of them with some form of intensity. Right, training for the bike, generally speaking, like we've been saying, allocate most of your training time to biking. And for me, like for a triathlete, like you've got to get to a stage where you can mount your bike and dismount your bike smoothly. Like if you're not doing that, then you're not doing triathlon. You're swimming, you're running, and you're cycling. And we're trying to train to be triathletes, not swim, bike runners. So, like my minimum standard that I try and get my people to do is a scooting mount. I'd love everyone to be able to do a flying mount, but it's just not feasible for everyone. But at least be able to do a scooting mount. If you're running through transition with your bike shoes on, then you really need to work on this. Like it's just an eyesore every time I see it. Sorry to those people who do it, but it's, come on, if you're spending 4 hours riding your bike, you can spend 10, 20 minutes a week training your mount and dismount. Look, if you're not confident on the bike, riding on the roads, riding in groups, riding fast, then you've really got to work on this over your volume and intensity. So you could build up your bike skill confidence, bike handling, that sort of thing. Because if you're not confident riding on the road or riding in these groups and that sort of thing, then all that fitness you have for the bike is not going to translate to race day. You're going to be so nervous and everything, and you'll just ride super slow. Indoors, I love indoor riding. Okay, this is where you can just put in the effort. You can do your intervals. Doing them on the road's very tricky with traffic and that sort of thing. Safety considerations there are a lot higher. But get on the indoor trainer, set yourself either heart rate or power zones, get some intervals going, and that's what's really going to make you fit and fast on the bike. Same again, 3 to 4 sessions a week for improvement. And a really good goal, like if you want to get, as an age grouper, a good standard to get to for a certain period of time, maybe for an upcoming race, is 10 hours a week of riding. So that's made up of long rides, indoor training sessions, recovery rides, hill rides. If you can do 10 hours a week for like 3 months or something like that, then you're going to get super big gains. Okay. Most people can like if you're, it goes again, like if you're a high volume training Ironman athlete for an age grouper doing say 20 hours a week, then that kind of falls into that 50% as well. 10 hours a week is really good. What to include in your sessions. So we sort of touched on it. So steady threshold, right? So that's that effort you can hold, the highest effort you can hold for periods of 4 to 20 minutes, whether you measure your heart rate doing this or you've got a power meter. Then you've got very hard VO2 efforts. 2 to 4 minutes is the maximum period of time you should be able to hold this effort. So doing sets of those. Then you can move into race pace efforts as you get closer to your race day, like maybe six weeks out from race day, you can focus more on race pace efforts. And like if you're doing a Olympic distance, you got 40K ride. So this is the goal pace you want to ride, or the goal effort you want to ride for 40Ks on race day, and still be able to run off the bike. And then you can do all these sessions, but do them uphill. Okay, so you're just layering in that added level of difficulty to make your cycling stronger. And last one I want to touch on here is like big gear efforts. Okay, put in the comments what you think about big gear efforts. It's really, you just got to understand why you're doing them. A lot of people just do them because they see all the pros doing them and that sort of thing. and some of the high or most notable triathlon coaches out there just rave on about it all the time. And I talked about it in my other video about cycling training and hill riding. But at the end of the day, big gear efforts, all you're doing there is you're just trying to create extra resistance, okay? That's all you're doing, big resistance, okay? You can actually mimic this in a gym, just doing your strength training with your legs. You can also do these by riding uphill, okay? All you're doing is just increasing resistance. You wouldn't race like that, okay? You wouldn't race at like 40 RPM, all right? Because it'll just burn up way too much muscle glycogen stores, your energy, and then when you get to the run, you won't run very well at all. But it has a place in a training program of building bike strength, okay? So just understand why you're doing it. You wouldn't race like that, okay? It's just silly. Training for the run, last one. So generally, like I've said before, don't do too much speed work. 1 to 2 sessions a week is enough, with rest of or easy days of 1 to 2 days between. No need for mega runs unless you're an ultra runner. That's a bit of a different story. But for most triathletes, like that 2 to 3 hour range is well long enough for a long run, okay? You can manage the rest of your running throughout the week a lot smarter without having to just like smash in their big long runs. Just requires too much recovery time. The risk of injury is very high, so it's just not worth it. So you can break up your mileage through the week with more frequency. So do some shorter runs more often throughout the week. It's a smarter way to do it. And measure your volume in Ks per week. So don't try and think of like, oh, I've got a half Ironman to do, so I need to do loads of 21K runs. Just look at like your overall weekly volume. And like a good way to kind of program it is like, say if your race distance is 21Ks in the half Ironman, then you might try and average double that on a weekly basis as like a baseline. So 40Ks a week or 42Ks a week of running per week leading up to an Ironman, that's pretty solid, okay? And if you do that for a long enough period of time, you'll actually be quite strong on race day. And last one here, generally speaking, try and make your long run, no more than about 30% of the volume of your total week. So just to make the math simple, if you're doing 100Ks of running a week, then a 30K run once per week should be the longest run you do that week, okay? All your other runs are made up of shorter runs, and we'll get into the kind of types of runs you can make those up on. So what to include, how to break up your runs throughout the week. So you can do your easy, however you want to call these runs, easy, aerobic, MAF, maximum aerobic function runs. Do loads of these to make up the bulk of your run training. Fartlek training, so speed play, you can see these sessions are like, minute on, minute off, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off. You can do them all at a certain pace, like 5K pace or 10K pace, or you could adjust the pace as you do your different intervals at. So I really like these ones, and I've got loads of different types of these sessions, so let me know if you want one. Hills, hill reps, VO2 runs. So these are generally going to need to be, to get the right changes in your body out of these runs, these need to be at least 800 meters to about 1200 meters in distance, okay? And they run at 90% effort. And then pace specific intervals. So, I mean, you might do like 20 400s or 10 400s and do these all at a certain pace. So you might do them at 3K pace, 5K pace, 10K pace, depending on what kind of race you're getting ready for. But the idea of those is like you're trying to do those faster than what you could run a certain distance at. So let's say you wanted to improve your 5K pace, you would do your 400s a lot faster than your 5K pace. All right. So if your 5K pace, your best 5K result is 20 minutes, so that's 4-minute pace, then you'll be doing these 400s at say 350 pace. Okay. So just a bit quicker. And then once again, frequency. If you're doing big mileage, you want to be doing 5 plus runs per week. If you're doing just sort of low general sort of normal mileage, then 3 runs per week is okay. So look, that just that was a long video, but I wanted to cover off on a lot of stuff there, how you can build your training program, some things to think about, how you structure it. Yeah, if you've got any questions, you want to know more from myself, or you want me to write your program, I can do that for you and we can talk about it. But that's a lot of the stuff I think about, when I'm building people's programs. And yeah, there's a lot that can go into it, and there's a lot of information out there. But just try and keep it simple. Think about these, these 9 rules, and let that kind of govern how you approach your training in general. Apart from that, that's it. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, and if you've got any questions, hit me up. Ciao.